Hello, I'm Rick Westerdale, and I'd like to introduce the highlight reel you're about to see. With nearly 30 years of experience, I've had the unique benefit of working in multiple facets of the energy sector, including corporate roles, with government, and as an entrepreneur. As an engineer, I've been trained to study the facts, follow where they lead, and apply a disciplined approach to understanding the challenges faced. It's a tumultuous time in the global energy markets, recognizing that energy fuels economic activity and considering the challenges faced by most countries, including the US, as we recover from the COVID pandemic. Both producers and consumers are grappling with the impact on the global energy markets, and oil in particular, while trying to understand the potential implications of new COVID variants. This is a difficult balancing act with opposing motivations, and one that calls for an open dialogue to navigate these uncertain times. Attached are a few excerpts from several of my recent interviews that have aired internationally, both in English and Arabic. Thank you for having me on your show tonight. It's an excellent question, and the bottom line is that both producers and consumers realize the need to communicate and get a fuller understanding of the pace and impacts on the economic recovery from the global pandemic. As we've seen with the Omicron variant, it's still early days, and we're likely, the scientists as well as the vaccine manufacturers are saying that we're likely not to know the true impact of the Omicron variant on the markets for the next probably 3 to 4 weeks. In the interim, I do think an open dialogue, much like the G20 leaders called for in Rome when they met, and much like the signal that we've seen from OPEC and OPEC Plus, need to have that ongoing dialogue because it is a delicate juncture, one where the economies are really truly starting to recover. Here in the West, we're coming into the holiday shopping season, so consumer activity, travel is up, and therefore energy consumption is up. But will that be sustained, or will the Omicron variant actually cause us to have another period of lockdowns, one which could affect demand? And that's really where we're at, and it is very much a wait and see. And I think that's the messaging you were seeing out of OPEC Plus and what you're hearing in the markets today.
ولكن ما هي الخيارات؟ سألتك عن الخيارات سابقا أمام الإدارة الأمريكية، قلتم بأن هنالك خيارات كثيرة، ولكن ما طبيعة هذه الخيارات، خاصة أن هنالك اتجاه في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية يحمل السعودية مسؤولية ما جرى؟
تبقى المملكة العربية السعودية أحد أقوى شركائنا في منطقة الخليج، وتربطنا بها علاقة تاريخية، وأعتقد أننا سوف نستمر في شراكتنا، وهذا واضح من خلال الحوار المباشر الذي نجح الرئيس ترامب في القيام به مع السعودية ومع روسيا، ونجح في إنجاز ما رأيناه من نتيجة بعد الاتفاق الأخير الذي تم التوصل إليها. أعتقد أن الخيارات المتاحة أمامنا.
طيب، كيف لو سمحت لي سيد ريتشارد؟
مجددا ينضم إلينا السيد ريتشارد. كنت سألتك إن كان بايدن فشل بما يتعلق بخططه لمواجهة أزمة الطاقة في الداخل الأمريكي، خاصة أنه ضيوفي يعني ألمحوا إلى هذه المسألة لأنه كان قراره مرتبط بأسباب سياسية ولم تكن خطته معتمدة على الجانب الاقتصادي بشكل عام.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for having me on your show tonight. You ask an excellent question. The Biden administration and President Biden are looking at all measures necessary here to combat the high price of oil and energy here domestically. We are seeing the consumer price index up 6.2%. And we're also seeing inflation at an all-time or a 30-year high. So in fact, the president has looked here domestically, as my Russian colleague said, at ways to increase production. But unfortunately, that is something that cannot happen overnight. He's also looked at an SPR release, which was announced, and that will have some impact already being priced into the market. And ultimately has called upon OPEC members to increase production. What this boils down to is a fundamental difference in a view of the economic recovery from the pandemic and what's necessary to keep that growth and to have the economy return to normal. Really, it is a situation where we have to be cautious because too high of oil prices obviously impact energy writ large, the full value chain, and could cause us to reach a tipping point where we actually see not just the US's economy, but the global economy reach a potential recession. So it really is correct that there is a call for a dialogue between consumers and producers. And it was at the G20 meeting in Rome 3 weeks ago that they called for the International Energy Forum out of Saudi Arabia to host just such a dialogue between producers and consumers.
ينضم إلينا من واشنطن الدكتور ريتشارد ويسترديل عضو مجلس إدارة شركة بلوت تراست الرائدة في شؤون الطاقة. السؤال يعني البديهي، هل يمكن أن تكون إثيكا هذه المدينة الصغيرة التي لا يتجاوز عدد سكانها 30,000، هل يمكن أن تكون نموذجا على مستوى واسع للطاقة النظيفة؟
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for having me on your show tonight. The short answer is yes. Across the United States, there are many rural communities that have aged infrastructure. And one of the challenges Ithaca faces in particular is its remoteness to sources of energy such as traditional fossil fuels and natural gas. As such, they use heating oil, which is one of the highest cost forms of fuel, which allows the city to have the opportunity to do this sort of switch, invest in residential and commercial buildings, upgrade those to more modern facilities, and at the same time, use alternatives and renewables. This is a combination and something that the U.S. is struggling with. So yes, this could be an example to many other small cities in the United States, more of the remote cities that struggle with their energy mix.
In building a sustainable and reliable energy future, the choices made today will have a profound impact for generations to come, which is something that I'm passionate about. You see, the energy sector sits at the heart of these decisions, and the focus on the energy transition is at the forefront of global policy implementation post the Paris Agreement. Energy actually sits at the nexus of economic development, national security, and environmental responsibility. Personally, I'm excited about the opportunity as well as the challenges faced by the energy transition, but it must be managed thoughtfully to avoid unintended consequences.